Why did Peloton refuse to recall a treadmill that killed a child? In April 2021, the US government's product safety regulator did something it almost never does. It went around a company entirely and told the public, directly, if you have small children or pets in the house, stop using this treadmill right now. Peloton's answer, in writing that same day, was that the government was wrong. The company's official statement called the warning inaccurate and misleading and said there was no plan to recall anything. Then, within weeks, Peloton reversed itself completely. This is the story of what it took to get a $50 billion company to say it more simply, we made a mistake. That's the shape of story this channel keeps circling back to. Not just a company that made a mistake, but a company that got caught choosing its own image over the truth and had to decide what to do next. If that's the kind of story you're here for, this channel finds one every week. So if you haven't already, now's a good moment to subscribe and ring the bell, because the 2 years before that April statement are where this one actually starts. Peloton was built by John Foley and 4 co-founders in 2012 on a simple pitch. Bring the energy of a boutique fitness studio into your living room, through a bike with a screen bolted to the handlebars. By early 2021, that pitch had turned into a pandemic-era empire. Peloton's market value had climbed to roughly $50 billion, and Foley's own stake in the company was worth an estimated $1.9 billion. But Peloton was never just selling hardware and a subscription. It was selling an idea that this was the safe, aspirational way to get healthier without ever having to leave your living room. That idea was the entire brand. Part of that empire was the Tread+, a treadmill priced above $4,200, built for the same customers already paying for the bikes. It had a distinctive open-back design, a running belt that wrapped around a roller at the rear of the machine with open space underneath it. That open space was also the floor. Small children, pets, and objects could be pulled underneath the machine and into the roller while the belt was running. And Peloton had a legal obligation the moment it learned that floor was hurting people. Federal law requires manufacturers to report a known safety hazard to the Consumer Product Safety Commission within 24 hours of finding out about it. Starting in December 2018 and continuing through 2019, Peloton began receiving exactly those reports. Children, pets, and objects pulled underneath the Tread+. It didn't report the hazard to the CPSC. Not within 24 hours, not within the year. The incidents kept happening, and the company kept selling the machine without telling the one federal agency whose entire job is to catch exactly this kind of pattern before it becomes something worse. That reporting requirement isn't a formality. It exists so a regulator can spot a pattern across thousands of households before any one family has to learn about the danger the hard way, from their own living room, instead of from a warning label. For more than 2 years, Peloton was the only party who could see that pattern forming, and it kept that information to itself. By the time anyone outside the company found out what Peloton already knew, it wasn't going to be through a press release. In March 2021, a child died in an incident involving the Tread+. On March 18th, CEO John Foley posted a note publicly confirming it. Peloton has never released the child's name, age, or the exact circumstances of what happened. Out of respect to the family, the company said, and this video isn't going to speculate beyond what's already public either. A month later, on April 17th, 2021, the CPSC had counted 39 separate incidents tied to the Tread+, including that death. That was the number behind the warning the agency issued that day, the one that told the public, unilaterally, without Peloton's agreement, to stop using the machine around children and pets. For a company that had built its entire identity on being the safe, aspirational way to get healthier, This was the moment its own product became the thing regulators were warning families about. Peloton's official response came out that same day. In writing, the company called the CPSC's warning inaccurate and misleading. It said there was no reason for anyone to stop using the Tread Plus as intended, and no plans to recall it. Foley defended that position publicly too. For more than 2 weeks, while press coverage and regulatory pressure kept building, Peloton held the line. The government had gotten this wrong, and the company that made the treadmill knew better. It's worth sitting with how unusual that is. Companies get product safety warnings and quietly comply constantly. Very few of them respond to their own federal safety regulator in public, in writing, by telling the government that it's the one that's wrong. On May 5, 2021, Peloton reversed course completely. Foley put his name directly on it. Peloton made a mistake in our initial response to the Consumer Product Safety Commission's request that we recall the Tread Plus. The company recalled roughly 125,000 Tread Plus units, jointly with the CPSC, and offered full refunds. By then, the incident count in the recall announcement had grown to more than 70. Peloton projected the recall would cost it $165 million in lost quarterly revenue, $105 million in sales it wouldn't make, and $50 million in refunds to customers who wanted their money back. The recall wasn't the end of the reckoning. It was the start of it. Peloton's stock, which had peaked near $167 a share in early 2021, kept sliding as pandemic-era demand for home fitness cooled. By January 2022, the company that had been worth $50 billion was worth roughly $10 billion. In February 2022, Foley stepped down as CEO, moving briefly into an executive chairman role before leaving the board entirely later that year. The company cut roughly 2,800 jobs the same day. Then, in January 2023, the CPSC announced its penalty. Peloton agreed to pay just over $19 million, one of the largest civil fines in the agency's history. About $16 million of it was for failing to report the hazard for more than 2 years. The remaining roughly $3 million was for something separate, knowingly selling at least 38 already recalled Tread Plus units after the public recall. By the time Peloton's own hazard report finally reached the CPSC, the agency's records showed more than 150 total incidents had accumulated since that first report in December 2018, including the one death, and at least 13 injuries. Foley's own fortune fell with the company. His stake, once worth an estimated $1.9 billion, had dropped to roughly $225 million by the time he left the company entirely, and he sold off assets along the way, including a $55 million property in the Hamptons. In 2024, Foley told Fortune he'd lost all his money. That's not literally true. He's talking about the paper Fortune built on Peloton stock, not his entire net worth. But the scale of the fall is real. By 2025, he'd rebuilt. Ernesta, a rug retailer he co-founded with 2 other former Peloton employees, had doubled its sales to $55 million that year, and went on to raise a new round of funding in early 2026. None of that undoes what happened in 2021. It just means the story doesn't end with Foley destitute. It ends with a company, and the man who built it, both having to rebuild trust that a single public decision helped destroy. So why did Peloton refuse to recall a treadmill that killed a child? Because for 2 years, protecting the machine's reputation mattered more than reporting what it was doing to the people underneath it. Right up until a federal agency forced the company to choose, in public, between the truth and its own statement. Peloton chose the statement first. It cost the company a record fine, its safety-first identity, and its founder's job. And all it took to change course was finally admitting, in public, which one should have come first. Stay sharp? Stay curious? And always ask why, guys.